Welcome to Techies for Reproductive Justice, the podcast, a place for technologists and community organizers to learn from each other. I'm your co-host, Azamare.
And I'm your co-host, Lou. Today we have an amazing panel with experts on the connections between Palestine, tech, and reproductive justice. This panel was recorded during our Techies for Reproductive Justice monthly meeting on November 16th, 2023, so some of the information has probably changed since then. We still think exploring these connections is really valuable, and we hope that you enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, it's a great conversation, and we can't wait for y'all to tune in. Before we get to our panel, let's go to T4RJ's media recommendations of the week. As always, it's your spot for all things reproductive justice, social justice, and tech media recommendations. This week, we want to highlight The 100 Years' War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi. This book is a great way to contextualize what's happening in Palestine and what Palestinians have been going through for the past 75 years. Now let's get into the episode.
Now I'll go ahead and introduce our amazing panelists, starting with Dr. Bayan Abusneineh. She's a provost fellow to faculty in the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Department at The Ohio State University. Her research works on racial and reproductive politics in Palestine and Israel. Welcome, Dr. Abusneineh. Thank you so much for being here. Barrios is a campaign manager at Empower Change, which is a grassroots movement of U.S. Muslims working to build social justice, and is a leader of No Tech for Apartheid campaign. Welcome, Lau. Thank you for being here. And Charlene Carruthers is a writer, filmmaker, and Black Studies PhD student at Northwestern University, a practitioner of telling more complete stories. Her work interrogates historical conjunctures of Black freedom, making post-emancipation and decolonial revolution, Black governance, and Black feminist abolitionist geographies. She is the author of Unapologetic, a Black queer and feminist mandate for radical movements. Welcome, welcome, welcome to you all. So we're going to go around just answering this question. To start off, tell us a little bit about what your current work is focused on, and how are you seeing this moment of U.S.-backed Israeli genocide in Gaza and in Palestine. So Dr. Abusneineh, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You totally can just call me Bayan. I'm just not used to that yet. So thank you so much for having me and, just being in this space. I think it's so interesting to think about the intersections between technology and reproductive justice. So it's really nice to see this space. As was mentioned, I begin next fall as an assistant professor in the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies at Ohio State University. I'm brand new to Columbus, Ohio. I'm originally from California, and I'm Palestinian American. So there's a lot of feelings and a lot of things that I could say about how I'm feeling in this moment and sort of what this moment means. But I'm a Palestinian American studying Palestine studies. I do, I just kind of wrote down to help me, but I think about racial and reproductive projects in Palestine and Israel. So basically, I look at how Israel manages, subjugates, and tries to erase populations deemed threatening through practices of racialization and reproductive control. So this is obviously against Palestinians, but it is also extended towards racialized or what I call non-white Jewish folks in Israel. And, I'm happy to talk about that and, in the Q&A or whatever, more about that. But, this moment is, it's a lot. It's very difficult to watch. It's very difficult to keep pushing through as if, business as usual, as if, we're just okay to continue to work and to continue to be in the midst of genocide and to be able to witness that, knowing every single month part of my paychecks, goes towards this.
Thank you so much, Bayan. Lau, do you want to take us away on that question of what your current work is focused on and how you're seeing this moment?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm Lau. I use she, her pronouns. I'm based in Brooklyn. And yeah, my work over the last 5-ish years has been focused on the intersection between abolition and technology. So I've done a lot of organizing and campaigning around tech and state violence and the militarism of tech companies and how big tech powers state violence. And the work that I've been mostly focused on over the last few years is called the No Tech for Apartheid campaign, which is a campaign co-led by Empower Change, which is the organization that I'm a senior campaign manager at, and Jewish Voice for Peace, in collaboration with Amazon and Google tech workers. We started in October 2021. Yeah, that's 2 years ago, right? Yes. Okay. I'm very out of it. Excuse me. But yeah, we started 2 years ago to call for an end to Project Nimbus, which is $1 billion contract with the Israeli government and military that Amazon and Google jointly hold. And it's a cloud contract that basically means that a lot of it is very nebulous. So we don't have that much information about what the contract actually is, except for some leaks that have confirmed that the Israeli military, as well as the Israeli Land Authority, which is responsible for settlements in the West Bank and beyond, will have access to the technology and the support that Project Nimbus provides the Israeli government and military. So that's sort of been the focus in terms of organizing tech workers over the last 2 years. We've had some really important moments around moments where we've disrupted the AWS Summit, which is the Amazon Web Services Summit. We had a huge day this past summer in August in the Bay, where we kind of shut down Google Cloud Next, which is Google's biggest conference of the year. So we've had a lot of different people like lock themselves across the bridge and across the intersection. So we've had a lot of really powerful direct actions. And I can talk about, No Tech for Apartheid and Project Nimbus Forever. So I can share more. We have like a student organizing component, et cetera. But in terms of what this summit has really brought, I mean, obviously I very much echo what Bayan was saying in terms of like, it's really, really difficult to like function in this world, like trying to organize folks and seeing the business as usual happening. It's kind of like you're living in a different dimension. But I think, with tech workers, it's kind of similar. A lot of our tech worker organizers, I think, are feeling kind of the same, are trying to mobilize and push. And so we're kind of seeing this moment as a like, if now is not the time where tech workers at Amazon and Google are going to speak out against this contract about the fact that their employer is powering the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, like if they're not going to do that now, like I don't really know when it's going to happen. Like this should be the moment to instigate the most courageous action from tech workers. And that is what we're seeking. That's what we're trying to mobilize around. We've luckily had a lot of interest from tech workers over the last month who have kind of reached out and wanting to get involved. So we're kind of having to restructure because we've never, had this influx of folks, which is a wonderful problem to have, but it's also not enough. So we need more and more tech workers, especially at Google and Amazon, to call for an end. So we're really trying to organize tech workers in the industry around this one specific contract, because we know if Amazon and Google cut this contract, it will have reverberating impacts, not just among the tech industry and the militarization of the tech industry, which is like, tech companies have more contracts with the US military than some like war, like literal like weapons manufacturers. Like it's really wild, the level of militarization of tech. So just to say that like we know that if like this is the moment really to be courageous and really, really key to do that. So we're doing our best to escalate as much as we can and really kind of create the avenues for folks to take action.
Thanks so much, Lau. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be there in August when y'all shut down the Google Cloud Next conference, and it was so powerful to see what people organizing together can do. Charlene, I'll turn it over to you. The same question of what your work is focused on and how you're seeing this moment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlene. You sharing her pronouns. Glad to be here with y'all tonight. Bayan, you did not ramble. Please don't apologize. I know I probably shouldn't be looking at your comment, but I am. I am a member of Black for Palestine, which is a national network of Black folks who are moving in solidarity with the movement, the broader movement for Palestinian liberation. Black for Palestine emerged in 2014, basically from cultivating a cross-movement solidarity between Palestinian activists and also folks participating in the Ferguson uprisings. In 2015, Black for Palestine organized its first solidarity statement, which garnered well over 1,000 signatures from Black folks across, not just in the US, but primarily in the US, as individuals and also organizations. And so folks like Dr. Angela Davis, Mark Lamont Hill, and other folks signed it in 2015, and other organizations like the Dream Defenders. And that's how I was invited into this conversation, is through Black for Palestine. And for me personally, it's been a moment of reactivation as an organizer. I spent over 15 years organizing in movements across the US and doing connections, relationship building, and solidarity work with folks around the world. I had the opportunity to visit Palestine, occupied territories of Palestine in 2015 with a delegation organized by Meta Al-Hussein, who is a journalist, a scholar, and writer and producer, and Ahmed Abusneineh, who is currently the executive director of the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. But back then, he was an organizer with the Dream Defenders. And so in Black for Palestine, we most recently, a couple weeks ago at this point, organized a new solidarity statement to really call for a ceasefire, of course, in Gaza. Also continuing the call for a free Palestine, divestment from the U.S. government and corporations in the Israeli regime and military and the overall occupation. And also thinking through how we organize Black people, which includes political education, but also includes action. And so there was a delegation of folks from Black for Palestine at the mass mobilization in DC on November 4th as well. But to your question about how I'm understanding this moment, for me, and I would, a lot of it is echoed within Black for Palestine. This is a moment where U.S. imperialism and Western imperialism at large is on full display. The lies of U.S. of the project of the United States is there on full display, and the lies of the other settler colonial projects are on display. And it is also a moment in which lots of people are rightfully asking, particularly Black folks, are rightfully asking, well, what about the genocide in Sudan? What about the genocide in Congo? What about what is happening in Haiti? So this is a moment where global issues, global matters of militarism, global matters of genocide, the vestiges and ongoing legacies of imperialism are converging, and people are asking important questions. And when folks bring that up and asking, like, why is Black for Palestine doing this in solidarity and in co-struggle for Palestinian liberation and not others, that to me is a moment to lean in and say, what more can we do? Because all of these things are connected. They are all connected. And our solidarity statement this time has over 5,000 signatures. And that happened in about 2 weeks. And it includes well over 100 organizations that have also signed on. And so our next work is about continuing to organize on the national level as much as we possibly can, echoing the calls for a ceasefire, and really continuing to make the connections across global movements for liberation. Like this is as you said, as you shared, Lau, this is a moment. This is an incredible moment where all of our movements for liberation can come together. And it's awful that it's in a moment where over 11,000 people have been killed. It shouldn't take that. And it's our responsibility to do all that we can in this moment.
Thank you so much for that, Charlene. I will continue on with some of our questions. So coming back to you, Bayan, how is Palestine and the occupation a reproductive justice issue?
Charlene, I'm so grateful for what you said too, because if we continue to allow Israel to commit what it's doing, then we're setting a precedent for the rest of the world that genocide is okay. So I'm with you, and I just really appreciate that. To answer this question, there's so many ways that I could have answered this, and I didn't want to sit there and talk about my work. I think there's just so many things to in this particular moment that we can really lean on to think about how Palestine is a reproductive justice issue. For, I don't know if folks are aware, but the state of Ohio just passed issue 1, right, which sort of allows the right to make and carry out one's own reproductive decisions. And this extended beyond simple just abortion, right? Also contraceptives, miscarriage care, continuing pregnancy care, but really trying to think more about protecting our reproductive rights, right, in the midst of, post-Dobbs era. But what was so interesting about this moment was what had happened a couple weeks before, and it was probably a week or two, maybe a week into this most current onslaught against the Gaza Strip. The Abortion Fund of Ohio, an organization whose mission is around reproductive justice for all communities, including folks of color, poor, working class, disabled, trans, undocumented folks, people of historically oppressed communities, wrote this incredible statement condemning settler colonial violence in occupied Palestine, right? Specifically thinking about Gaza. And I really want to just, I don't want to spend too much time on this question. I can say more later, but I want to just read a couple snippets from their statement because it just highlights this idea of, I think it was Charlene mentioned, like these Western powers, right? This is oftentimes, like I feel like this is a post 9/11 moment, right? This is a war that we're in, right? That the United States is involved in, and not just involved, but is a major player. So it makes sense why, different groups here are becoming so vocal and why we're standing up, right? So they write, as an organization grounded in reproductive justice values, we believe all people have the right to bodily autonomy and self-determination, free of occupation. We believe that all people have the right to have a family and to parent their children with the dignity and resources to live safely and healthily. Reproductive justice cannot exist when you are denied basic human rights and essentials such as food, water, electricity, and the freedom of movement. Reproductive justice cannot exist when you are being bombed and massacred in your homes, in your streets, in your schools. Reproductive justice cannot exist when medical supplies are being withheld, hospitals are being targeted, and paramedics and doctors are slaughtered. The world is witnessing the complete annihilation of Gaza and the Palestinian people, with the United States as a main accomplice and perpetrator. We have a moral obligation to unlearn biased rhetoric and learn beyond our bubble of Western propaganda to understand the Palestinian struggle for liberation after being subject to apartheid and genocide on their own land after 7 decades. So this was probably one of the most powerful statements that I had read, and I've read plenty of statements, right? And this came from this local group around reproductive justice, right? And it really highlights why Palestine is this this issue of reproductive justice, right? So kind of to synthesize or to kind of bring my thoughts into this, one of the reasons is the basic, right, the targeting of Palestinian reproductive bodies, both discursively and materially, is structural to Israel's settler colonial project and racialized logic of elimination, and seeks to erase them with a settler entity, right? Because Israel is defined by definition is a Jewish state, right? That Palestinians living within its borders are characterized as an undesirable problem population, whose fertility and reproduction are highly threatening, right? And must be targeted. And so this sort of logic or these sort of understandings have been so, I feel like, in your face with this most current onslaught, right? There was a Ezra Yachin, who was I believe he was a veteran of the Israeli army, he said, we need to wipe out their families, their mothers and their children. These animals must not be allowed to live any longer, right? And so I want to kind of use that to think about the intentionality of the language, right? Is about targeting mothers. It's about targeting future generations of Palestinians, right? So we can see this, one, through the targeting of these intimate spaces, which includes hospitals, which includes schools, which includes bakeries, right? Places like food spots, right? Which are confining Palestinians in Gaza to not just a quick death with the bombing, but also a slow one, right? That these, targeting of these areas make it where they cannot survive, right? There's no access to food. And so you're also targeting the areas where they're able to access these basic needs or basic survival needs. The second thing is that children have made up 55,800, and that number is still very, it's a lot higher of the total deaths so far. Knowing very well that even prior to October 7, 50% of the population in Gaza was under 18, 40% was under the ages of 15. There's a statistic that says the highest population percentage-wise that have been killed during this onslaught is between the ages of 1 to 15. The average age is 5, right? Another thing is Palestinians are being targeted in mass. So folks don't know, or folks, the homes in Gaza are structured as high-rise buildings where multiple families live in one whole building, right? So it's easy to target an entire family. People are saying, like, how do you get it? That's why. It's because of the ways that they're living, right? And the sort of architecture around that. According to the Gaza Civil Registry, more than 825 families have been completely erased, right? One of those families had 89 members of it, and Palestinians produce a lot of babies. 192 families had at least 10 members of their family, right? And then the last thing is thinking about the conditions of Palestinian pregnant women is horrifying right now. So there's over 50,000 Palestinian women who are pregnant in Gaza. I believe it's 5,500 of them are expected to give birth within the next month, right? And so the problem, there's so many issues with that, and one is no access to clean water. There's no access to food, right? In terms of keeping with the pregnancy and keeping with the postpartum care. Hospitals are literally at capacity. They're making, like, women cannot be seen unless they are fully dilated, right? And now the even more horrifying thing is that these deliveries are happening without any pain relief. So a lot of C-sections, for instance, are happening without anesthesia, and that's cutting through almost 7 layers of tissue, right? And even the sort of thinking about the postpartum care, again, another horrifying thing that is happening is that doctors are performing hysterectomies on Palestinian women because there's no way to control the bleeding, right? So these are just some examples of how, our current moment, or what's going on currently, right, can be sort of understood. There's this this Zionist talking point about how can it be a genocide if Gaza's fertility rate has gone up 3 times as much, right? Well, we understand that genocide is not necessarily about body count, even though body count is important, right? It's about the intent to target. It's about the intent to cut off lineages, right? So I'm just gonna stop there.
Thank you for bringing up those really incredibly devastating statistics and connecting that, the reproduction of one person is one issue, and now we're talking about the reproduction of a culture, of a history, of many, many, many communities of people. Lau, I'm going to turn it to you to talk a little bit more about how tech is militarized in this moment and leading up to now, and some of the surveillance that Palestinians face and how that impacts livability in Gaza and the West Bank, in Israel proper, and how we in the U.S. are connected to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to start, Palestinians are probably one of the most surveilled populations on the planet. There is an omnipresent network of cameras and sensors across the West Bank, on the border with Gaza, or the crossings. And it is at every checkpoint. Every single checkpoint has, a myriad of cameras. There are examples where Israeli soldiers install cameras on Palestinians' roofs. So there's like this example of an Israeli soldier entering a Palestinian person's home to adjust cameras that they had already mounted on the roof, just like, walking in as if they sort of like own the place. And Palestinians are subjected to, the way that they're subjected to Israeli military rule is to lack basic privacy rights and to be surveilled in order to then be criminalized further, and to kind of be tracked by the state, because that is ultimately what they want to do. The checkpoints exist to limit the connections between communities and to keep track where people are going at all times. So this surveillance, is a lot of really high-tech surveillance, like facial recognition, machine guns, that now they're installing machine guns at checkpoints, which is like a newer thing. All these things get exported to the US and abroad, right? So all of these things, all this technology, there's very, very similar technology that is sold by companies like Palantir to the Israeli military, and then also to the Department of Homeland Security, so ICE, and also police departments, right? There's also, I'm sure people have been hearing this a lot more, there's a lot of police exchanges between IDF soldiers and police. So police in Atlanta, for example, that are currently violently attacking protesters at Stop Cop City. Like, that's just like one of the million examples of them exchanging information and tactics in order to increase their ability to surveil and criminalize. There's also, I'm just gonna get to my other notes, sorry. There's the level of mass surveillance is kind of hard to quantify. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around. As of 2020, across occupied East Jerusalem, there's over 1,000 cameras just in occupied East Jerusalem, just in that one section of the city. So I can just show you like exactly what's happening. There's this system called Blue Wolf that provides facial recognition via like a smartphone app, which means that soldiers can use it to register Palestinians, and like a lot of soldiers actually get prizes for registering and surveilling more and more Palestinians. There's also this other program called Red Wolf, and it's a system of cameras that use automatic facial recognition that are deployed at checkpoints and can consistently identify Palestinians without their knowledge or consent. So this question of consent really does come up, right, in terms of your bodily autonomy. But what Bayan was sharing is really connected to this, right? Like freedom of movement, freedom, like inability to control like how your body is being imaged at all times is huge, because it's completely non-consensual. There's also new robotic weapons that they're testing out. Like I mentioned, there's gun machines that they're testing out. They were actually sending robots with gun machines to the border with Gaza in 2021. These are things that have been happening systemically over time. Israel is also kind of considered one of like the tech hubs of the world. There's 1 million tech companies in Israel. It's state of the art. And that is why companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle all have major headquarters in Israel, in Tel Aviv, usually. And, one of the things that the increased surveillance and technology and the increasing sophistication of what they're powering means that we're kind of systematizing genocide, right? We're automating genocide. We're making it very, very simple and very easy to ethnically cleanse an entire population. It's very like, there's the idea of the smart border between the US and Mexico is very much like started right at checkpoints and with at the Gaza border with like the robots with machine guns that started being implemented in 2021. It's kind of like beyond words. And so there are like weapons that will constantly stay like sort of perched over, and they all use artificial intelligence as well. So what this means is that companies like Google that can provide through Project Nimbus, basically we found out through an intercept investigation that they're being handed over like machine learning capabilities that they don't have, that Israel actually didn't have. And those machine learning capabilities means that with the artificial intelligence that, you can import basically your own set of like numbers, your own data set. This means information on Palestinians. That's what it is. Import it and then use that to help the machines that already exist that Israel has, are very high-tech technology, to learn more and more and more and more about Palestinians, their location, the way that they move, etc. So yeah, I mean, I think that's like that's like very, very minimal, like on the surface, like kind of overview. But the other thing that's really important in terms of the militarization of technology is that, tech companies have like probably like 77%, for example, of all Google's government contracts since 2005 have been with agencies that have been central to the global war on terror. So that includes the US military, the Department of Homeland Security, and police departments across the country. So what does this mean is obviously that like Google, Amazon, the bigger tech companies, but even smaller ones are seeing government contracts with militaries as like their way to make money. So there's a massive profit incentive here, right? They're like, okay, we'll develop this technology. I guess we'll help people far enough, but no, the money is with these huge contracts. Some of them are $10 billion, $20 billion over like 10 years, you know, so it is like in like level of money that like we kind of can't comprehend. And then there's also the revolving door between big tech companies and people who've worked in the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security, the Pentagon, people who are super high up end up working at places like Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Oracle, Microsoft. It's kind of like the way that weapons manufacturers were considered like really embedded, right, with the US government during the war in Iraq. It's sort of similar to that. The way that tech companies and like big tech leaders are also have become deeply entrenched in kind of like the like US war machine in general, whether it's DHS, police departments, or like the Pentagon. Across the board, we see that collaboration. There's also obviously the contracts that companies have here with you know, the Ring doorbell camera, Amazon's Ring doorbell camera. That's a campaign that we've worked on for a while, or that has contracts with over like 2,000 police departments across the country. Obviously, ICE has a bunch of contracts with Amazon and Palantir. You know, this kind of the list sort of goes on, and all of this technology is used to just continually inflict violence upon Black, Brown, Muslim communities and Palestinian communities, both, you know, here in the US and in Palestine. I mean, I could talk about this forever, but like, I think that's an overall like overview around kind of the way that like, you know, tech companies are the new war profiteers. They just are. And so that's why we see the campaigns that we're running right now as crucial to cutting the war machine. So it's not just like looking at the weapons manufacturers that are, of course, always going to be a target and should continue to be a target, but the companies that put on this friendly face, right? Like Google.com, that's where you search, you use Google Translate. They have all these like very humane and like humanistic and like you know, for good things that they do or that they love to advertise. But on the underbelly of that is, you know, contracts that are facilitating the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, that are allowing for cops to kill Black people in the US. Like this is the fuel that they're adding to the militarism and the violence that our communities see. So I think it's really key for tech companies to be a target when we talk about how to fight back in this moment. It feels really key. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lau. That phrase of tech companies are the new war profiteers, that is really clear and really, yeah, speaks to part of this cycle of dehumanization that is part of what enables this genocide to continue. Thank you. Charlene, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to talk a little bit more about, from a Black feminist perspective, how you see the connections between reproductive justice and Palestine.
First of all, my mind is just blown by what Bayan and Lau just shared. I'm like, I'm taking notes. I'm learning a lot. So thank you both for everything you shared. When I think about reproductive justice, I think about it as an issue of self-determination. And by self-determination, I mean that like on a community level, on a group level, not just an individual, my body, my choice, like a liberal framing of how we can understand access to abortion care, but really in a holistic sense, right, of people being able to parent or not parent, and when they do choose to parent or not parent, to do so without fear of punishment, incarceration, of violence, and for themselves and the the children or the people that they parent and that they care for. And so, of course, on its most base level, any apartheid, any occupation, any settler colonial regime puts that not just in danger, but it prevents it from happening. It prevents people from being able to do that. And so I make clear connections between the US as a settler colonial project, in which everyday police officers are deputized and individuals are deputized to carry out and to carry out and reinforce barriers and systems of repression that prevent people from accessing reproductive justice. And the massive policing of people in Gaza, the containment of people in Gaza and in the West Bank and the broader occupied territories of Palestine is clearly indicative of that. And so the imperative that comes from that for me is actually an invitation to reproductive justice and reproductive rights groups here in the US, as Bayan already pointed out. Was that local organization in Ohio that you were naming earlier?
Yeah, it's like the state abortion fund.
To come forward and make statements that are grounded in those realities, because as much money as the US government takes out of our pockets and sends over to fund the Israeli military and other military forces and operations across the world, we know that that money should be and could be better spent, not just here in the US. It's not just about it being spent here, but it can actually be spent on life-sustaining and community-sustaining resources here and across the globe. So for me, and thinking at it through a Black feminist perspective, perspective, it's imperative from everything from the sterilization, the forced sterilization of East African women by the Israeli government. I can't remember the years in which that happened, which is a very concrete example of a reproductive injustice, to just the containment of people and how that containment is connected via programs like the Geely program here in the US that cross trains police officers or law enforcement here in the US with Israeli forces as well. So they learn how to, terrorize us, surveil us, brutalize us, assault us, our people, our communities, alongside Israeli forces. They swap tactics. And I, of course, as Bayan already mentioned, the amount of women and people who are pregnant right now, and the reports about how cesareans are being performed. I had a cesarean, a C-section, and to think, I don't even want to imagine what it would have been like in another environment without full access to care, to have bombs going off around you, even if there is anesthesia available, to have bombs, like what that does to the body, really what that does to the body and what it does to the psyche, and just somatically, all the babies who are being born earlier than they would have been born otherwise, the miscarriages that people are having, it's just devastating. It's absolutely devastating. And I know that, Lou, originally you asked me about sharing connections between Black liberation and Palestinian liberation. And I just want to point people to, there's I'm going to try to see if I can get the pages, but the Dream Defenders actually created a whole toolkit, and they have a list of 10 points, from Malcolm X's visits to Palestine, to June Jordan's writing about Palestine, to Dr. Angela Davis's work, to Muhammad Ali's visits as well, to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and their statements and their solidarity work, the Black Panther Party. There's a long legacy of Black folks, not just saying that they're in solidarity, but actually taking risks to the extent in which their own livelihoods have been not just at risk, but they've lost money, they've lost jobs, they've been ostracized. because people have understood for a very long time that are the connections between the U.S. empire and the link fates between Black folks here and Black people in Palestine as well, because there are Black folks, there are Black Palestinians, and there are Black folks, period, in Palestine and have been there for a very long time as well.
No, that's a really important thing to bring in, this solidarity across countries, Black people in the US, Black people in Palestine, and all over the world really showing up for Palestine. Some of the first people to really show up for Palestine, decades and decades ago. So thank you for bringing that in. Well, I know a lot of people are probably feeling very rightfully angry, upset, continually devastated by everything that y'all have shared, everything that we're seeing. I would love, I think we see this question a lot, but if there's anything that you want to raise as a call to action or a way to get involved in this movement for Palestinian liberation, if there's anything like, the bridge actions that you feel you've seen that really lift you up, if you want to share anything like that. But how can folks stay involved and stay engaged in this movement now and going forward?
I think what I see something different about this moment compared to other moments, because this isn't the first time, right, Gaza has been attacked. This isn't the first time people mobilized for Palestine and stuff. But what I'm seeing is people are really focusing are going back to their communities, are going back to their work, are going back to, like, there's all these connections that are being made that are so, like, both Blau and Charlene pointed out, these like direct connections that we have from here, right? Like addressing police brutality and addressing policing in this country is, fighting against apartheid in Palestine and Israel, right? And so I feel that, you don't necessarily have to be out on the street, so you don't have to be involved with these like organizations that maybe don't know of or haven't heard of, but like going back to the spaces that you're a part of and making this a part of your conversation. Why does Palestine matter to the spaces that you're in? Like the statements by these reproductive justice organizations are some of the most radical ones that I've seen so far, right? And there's a reason for it too. So yeah, that's just one way that I can think of, and one of the examples is what you did today, right? By bringing us together to have this like really amazing conversation.
I think, I echo everything you just said. Totally agree with that. I would say, like, a lot of the tech workers that are organizing on the campaign have been asking this question of like, should we just focus on, calling for a ceasefire and doing sit-ins that are, the offices of our representatives, and like, should we focus on that? And I think the thoughts that we've shared with folks is that in this moment, it feels really crucial to organize from your place of like power too, and like where you can actually move things in a really big way. And so when you're a tech worker, you actually have so much more power and leverage than a lot of people, because if you work for Amazon and Google, for example, like your employer has is directly profiting from this genocide. And so you have a position of power that other folks can't take. So I think thinking about where you hold that power, and also like where your communities feel the most connected and ready to work together, I think that's a big thing. And also just, constant solidarity and seeing all our struggles as interconnected. But I think that speaking to like the tech workers in the room, like I think it's really, really crucial for folks to connect to this issue in this moment. It really feels like incredibly urgent. And to plug a little bit the campaign stuff, we are organizing these mass calls for tech workers, and I'll share the information in the chat for folks to get involved and can join. And like I said, we're kind of building out our structure a little bit more because we haven't had this much interest before, which is great. And so we want to provide as many opportunities for people to plug in from low level, like low risk ways that you can support the campaign or be involved in the campaign, to like incredibly high risk things that we're planning in the future. So, you know, there's a range of things that we're trying to provide for tech workers specifically. So I can drop it in the chat, but I think that that's one thing, like an analysis around like, where am I, who am I connected to? And like, yeah, where's like how can I muster up the courage with other folks together, like collectively?
I'm like, what do I add here from what you all said? I'm as much of a participant as I am a speaker here tonight. I would say for sure folks should, I'm going to put the Black for Palestine website here. For Black folks, or if you know Black people, I'm assuming you know Black people. If you're not Black, please share with them the link. We are in a similar position as you all are, Lau, with figuring out what to do with the escalated numbers, like the large numbers of people who are interested in being involved in this moment. So people can sign up there and plug in. We're focusing a lot right now. Oh, I should say this network is full of people who are part of other organizations, like the leadership from the Dream Defenders are a part of it, leaders in Movement for Black Lives, people from a ton of organizations are a part of it. So it's really people coming together as a network to connect others to the work that's happening across the world, really, in many ways. And so plugging in there. I also just encourage folks to continue to be curious and learn more for themselves and have conversations with people and really make a lifelong commitment, like a lifelong commitment. And that doesn't mean a lifelong commitment of this level of activity or of a high level activity every single day, but recognizing this thing that we're up against, while the occupation has taken place for 75 years, we know that it's connected to hundreds of years of colonial regimes, like that got to the point of 1948. Like the British Empire has been around for a long time, but it fell. The US Empire has been around for a couple, several hundred years, and it will fall someday. But it won't happen. We won't have a transformed world if people aren't saying, actually, I'm going to do this for the long haul. And so that's what I encourage folks to do, is to, of course, take concrete action now. Show up to actions, act from your place of power, act with other people so you can have even more, like even greater amounts of power and places of power that you can act from. And think about how this moment can connect you to work over the rest of your life. Read. I think Dr. Barbara Ransby says that we have 3 imperatives or 3 things that we should all do. And that is study, struggle, and serve. And so those 3 things, like we can all do those things. We can all do those things. And studying is, yes, reading, but it's also watching films. It's also being in conversation with people. It's looking at art, making art. Study it's all of those things. And technically I'm an academic too. So don't let anybody tell you that studying is only reading in a book. It's all of those things. It's the thinking, the thought process, the analysis development, and really thinking about what to do with it next. Oh, I should say one more thing. I launched a radio series, a limited radio series. I keep forgetting. It's called Not in Our Names. It's on WRFG Atlanta. It airs on Fridays at 4 Eastern, but we're going to also transfer it over to a podcast. And the first segment of the series is about 5 or 6 episodes that focus on the genocide in Gaza and Palestinian liberation. So I talked to a bunch of different people, including Lubna Kotami from Palestinian Feminist Collective.
Wow. Just, and so much gratitude to you, Bayan, to you, Lau, to you, Charlene, for giving us all the time and your knowledge and your expertise, and this call to stay courageous, to stay curious, to stay committed to this struggle that we're all in for the long haul beyond this moment. This is just so powerful to have you all in this space, and to hear and share and move forward together in solidarity. So big thank you.
This episode was brought to you by Techies for Reproductive Justice, a project of the Digital Defense Fund. Your hosts for today's episode were Lou and Azamare. Liz was our editor. Thanks, Liz. Many thanks to Lau Barrios, Bayan Abusneineh, and Charlene Carruthers for your powerful insights. If you liked what you heard today, stay in touch with us by subscribing. Want to become a member of T4RJ or have ideas for future episodes? Check out our website, techiesforrj.org, to learn more and send us a message. Again, that's techies4rj.org. Our theme music is Beauty Flow by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. The song is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. See you on the internet. And thank you to all of our listeners. We are grateful to be in this movement together.